evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I declare this meeting open. And also a special welcome to the member for Bunbury, the Honourable John Casrilli, MLA. Welcome to you, John. Great to see members of the media and public attending tonight's meeting. Under announcements, last Wednesday we had an informal chat, the new council, and consensus was reached on some major targets for the next 2 years, and I'm going to announce those now. The council wishes to have a discussion with our community on these projects. Some of them are underway and controlled by others, but the ones that we will initiate are the ones that we particularly want to have a discussion with the community about. The first one is to consider the creation of a civic cultural precinct, including the area known as South Car Park, the Regional Art Gallery, the Council Gardens, the Council Administration Building, the Police Building, the Courthouse and Boulders Heights. And with the South Car Park, at some stage a council is going to have to look at doing a multi-storey car park development. That site's probably the most obvious. However, when that will happen is a matter for the community to tell us. At the moment, our car parking requirements and provisions are quite adequate according to the regular reviews that our officers provide us with. The other part of the CBD that we're looking at is the next stage of the Leschenault Inlet Management Plan, which is the narrowing of Blair Street and the public activation of the space between Bicentennial Square and the inlet, and that could also include the space in front of the Regional Entertainment Centre and the inlet. The other project that we're going to continue to encourage the Department of Housing with is the ultimate development of the Chewett Brook residential development. And councillors, you would be aware, and for our new councillors, Chewett Brook is the largest remaining greenfield site within the city's municipal district, and there is a yield of between 500 and 600 lots on that property. However, it is owned by the state government, it is controlled by the Department of Housing, and we will continue to have the conversation with the Minister and the Department to encourage the Department to ultimately develop that land. It gets back to our goal of increasing our rate base rather than continue looking at increasing rates. The other area which we have looked at and we wish to target is the last Tuesday evening. For those of you in attendance, you would have received a briefing from Department of Housing on the Withers local area plan, and that's a very exciting prospect for Withers. It's probably the next stage of development of Withers going forward, and Council, we may need to adjust the terms of reference for the Withers Advisory Committee to take up the partnership with the Department of Housing and South West Development Commission on actually getting the local area planning into reality, because I think all of us would agree that saw it was a very exciting concept. And the final new target for us is something we've discussed in the past but never really gotten anywhere with, and that is we do need to develop a new council depot. The Nootsier Avenue depot is no longer fit for purpose. It's aged, it's quite ordinary in terms of staff accommodation, change rooms, lunch rooms, and it's quite simply inadequate for what we need today. So we'll be looking at all aspects of that. That would include trying to identifying land within the light industrial area of Picton and the Halifax Devonport area, and we will consider outright purchase, we'll consider leasing, we'll consider joint venture, we'll consider all aspects that we can to make sure that we get a new depot within the next 2 years. So there's 5 projects that I think are very exciting, and we can add to our current list, which is quite extensive. And I'm hoping that, and I'm very confident, a lot of those projects we have underway at the moment will be finalised within the next couple of years. On another topic, councillors, as is my custom, just announcing the expenses that I incur in addition to my remuneration and sitting fees. Fuel expenses for the past period total $133.27, and the purchase of tea bags was $10.99. Thank you for your attention. Now, councillors, we move to item 4, which is the election of the Deputy Mayor. I invite nominations from you for that position.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate James Hayward for Deputy Mayor.
Further nominations? Councillor McCleary.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Councillor Brendan Kelly.
Councillor Kelly. Any further nominations, councillors? Okay, at this stage I am going to invite Councillor Hayward and Councillor Kelly to do a few-minute presentation. Perhaps if I invite the immediate past Deputy Mayor, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm nominating for the position of Deputy Mayor because I wish to continue making a contribution to the future of Bunbury in that role. I offer my credentials and experience to serve this council as Deputy Mayor. And over 3 decades of active community service in Bunbury, I've grown the ability to make connections across social, business and political interests. I've developed excellent public and private sector contacts in Bunbury and the southwest, with links across agencies of government, private enterprise, consultants and contractors. By having those connections, I've been able to form beneficial relationships, which I believe are the catalyst for success in Bunbury. Networking is one of the strengths I bring to the job of Deputy Mayor to accelerate and sustain success in this city. I suppose significantly I've developed a flexible system of time management. I have a sympathetic employer who has permitted me to modify my working hours to fit into the duties of being a Deputy Mayor. I believe it is this time flexibility that gives me an advantage in managing and performing the many and variable civic duties of a deputy. I believe I can support the Mayor and this council by virtue of my experience and commitment to the city. With the support of my partner, Sharon Gear, I'm confident that I can continue to perform the public service and community duties necessary to advance Bunbury's position as WA's second city. So I ask for your support, councillors, to be elected to the position of Deputy Mayor, a duty I pledge to perform to the best of my ability for the benefit of our city. So thanks very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Hayward.
Thank you very much. I've nominated to serve as Deputy Mayor, not because Councillor Kelly hasn't done an excellent job, because he certainly has, and if he's re-elected he certainly will continue to do an excellent job. The reason I have nominated is because I believe that I too can do a very good job for our city. Over the past 2 years I've been stretched and tackled some fairly full-on and difficult circumstances, some of them quite challenging in my role as councillor. The Bragg motion comes to mind, how we changed the way that the arts community was managed. The Withers Advisory Council, which certainly early on was a very challenging time, and the public meeting at College Grove, where we all had to roll our sleeves up and hope that we could get control of the hordes as we challenged to get through that time as well. I believe I've had some success with each of the roles I've been given and have undertaken, and whilst I acknowledge that all of these successes are because of a team working together to achieve an outcome, I do acknowledge also that I do have some skills in terms of working with people and being able to work together with them to achieve a common purpose and an outcome. I put my hand up tonight because I believe that the role of Deputy Mayor can offer me a significant personal development opportunity as I learn to serve and serve the community. Ultimately, I think it's in our best interest to develop the people we have in this room. None of us have worked out how to get any younger. We're all getting older, and Councillor Kelly certainly has significant experience, as he's been deputy on at least 3 occasions. His experience will remain in the room, just as Councillor Jones has after she also served in the deputy position. Into the future, it's likely that the future mayors and political leaders are sitting right here in this room. It's in all our interest to develop the talent that's in this room. As an organisation, we can only benefit from such an outlook. I have the support of my family and I can manage the time required, and I will prioritise the role if elected. Tonight I can be voted Deputy Mayor by my fellow councillors with your support. All you need to do is to vote for me. I urge you to do so. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kelly. Thank you both. Now, I'll just ask the CEO to distribute some voting slips. And councillors, just indicate by a mark across the tick your preferred candidate for Deputy Mayor. I'll ask the CEO to assist with the count. I'll put it in here. Councillors, the vote is very, very tight. One of you has written a smiley face on your ballot paper. So I'm going to ask you to do it again, and will you please tick or cross the box of your preferred candidate? I'm glad the members of the public think that's humorous, but I certainly don't. Thank you, councillors. I declare Councillor Kelly Deputy Mayor for the next 2 years. Well done. Okay, I'll just bear with me a second, Councillor Kelly.
I, Councillor Brendan Kelly of 10 Turner Street, Bunbury, having been elected to the office of Deputy Mayor of the City of Bunbury, declare that I take the office upon myself and will duly, faithfully, honestly and with integrity fulfil the duties of the office for the people in the district according to the best of my judgment and ability, and will observe the Local Government Rules of Conduct Regulations 2007 declared at the Bunbury Council Chambers, 2-4 Stephen Street, Bunbury on the 27th of October 2015.
Thank you very much, councillors, and congratulations again. Thank you very much to both Councillor Hayward and Councillor Kelly for nominating. Declarations of interest, councillors. So I have a declaration from Councillor Steck relating to item 11.4.2. It's a financial interest as her partner owns property across the road. Are there any further declarations of interest? Thank you. Public question time. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I take the opportunity to congratulate the re-elected councillors, the 2 new councillors, and the election of Councillor Kelly as the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Hayward for nominating. My 3 questions tonight are, firstly, I note that on a personal inspection of the works undertaken to prevent erosion at the eastern end of Kambana Beach, while the port infrastructure and crystal minerals are protected, the rest of the eroded areas between crystal minerals and the Dolphin Discovery Centre remain unprotected, and I ask who will be responsible for the works required to protect the remainder of the eroded areas, including that where 4 trees have fallen over as a result of the erosion. When might this be undertaken, and what is the likely cost? The second question is, I refer to the sewage spill into the Blair Street drain, the Queen's Gardens nutrient stripping pond, and the Leshnot Inlet and Kambana Bay, and ask what role the Council has in ensuring this does not happen again, and is Council giving any consideration to any legal action or prosecution of Watercorp and forcing them to move their sewage infrastructure away from Council's water drainage system, especially the open drains like that in Blair Street. I note, councillors, that for any of you who didn't see it, that I saw the greatest lineup of silage trucks in Blair Street dealing with this problem.
Sorry, Mr. Smith, just ask your questions, thanks.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The third question is, I refer to the Withers local area plan and proposed strategic plan, and ask whether Council will agree to add a copy of both plans to the Council website and to making sufficient copies of both plans available at the Withers and City Library.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Your questions will be dealt with as correspondence and you'll be written to in due course. Do you have a question, Councillor Steele?
Yes, I do. Will those answers to these questions be printed in our minutes?
No.
Can you tell me why?
Because they'll be dealt with as correspondence. Take a seat, thank you. Are there any petitions, councillors? We have requests for deputations tonight. We have 3. Mr. Schrant wishes to make a deputation with respect to 11.4.3. Before I get on to that, confirmation of minutes. Thank you very much. Someone move the confirmation of the last minutes of the last meeting, 13th of October. Thank you, Councillor Cook. Second up, Councillor Giles, all in favour. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. You voted against. Presentations, deputations. Mr. Schrant wishes to speak to item 11.4.3. This is dealing with the development in Withers. Councillors, please indicate if you agree with him making his deputation. Mr. Schrant, I'll call you up. I'll call you up when we get to that item. It's okay. Mr. Carter from Pinnacle Planning wishes to make a presentation dealing with the matter on the illuminated sign in King Road. Those who agree, please indicate. Those who do not, that's approved. Mr. Smith wishes to make a deputation on item 11.2.12, which is the Francis Street property. Those who support that, please indicate. Those who don't, that's approved. I'll call you up when we get to those items. Now, councillors, I'm going to read out matters which we won't be dealing with at the moment, because there's more that we are dealing with, obviously, with all the elections. So these are the ones that I don't have any indication of dealing with at the moment. So we start at 11.2.10, which is the schedule of accounts for payment. 11.2.11, 11.2.13, 11.2.14, 11.2.15, and 11.4.4. Are there any of those that any councillor wishes to raise?
Sorry, sir, I thought we had some speakers on a couple of those. I think there was 11.2.12 where there's a speaker and 11.43 where there's a speaker.
Yeah, I've got that organised here. 11.2.12.
11.42.
11.42 is also listed for speaking. 11. Yeah, okay, that's not circled here. Councillors, 11.2.14 requires an absolute majority as well, so we'll deal with that one. So are there any of those others, few remaining, that anyone wishes to discuss tonight? That being the case, can I have someone move? Councillor Cook.
So moved.
Councillor Jones. All in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, just bear with us as we go through these appointments to various committees. (11.2.1). Can we get that larger for my poor eyes? So, councillors, 11.2.1, the Bunbury Harvey Regional Council, we have nominations from Councillor Cook, Jones and Miguel, with proxies being Councillor McGuinness and Hayward. Councillor Giles.
Mayor, if we need another proxy, I'm prepared to be the third proxy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What I'll do, I'll go through all of these councils, then we'll just get one motion, if that's convenient for you. The Bunbury Local Emergencies Management Committee, member Councillor Cook with proxy Councillor Hayward. If any of you wish to nominate for any of these, just yell out. Bunbury Regional Theatre Trust, Councillor Kelly and Councillor Steele have nominated. Councillor Kelly?
My understanding is that there's one position for that, but we've never had a proxy, and I think that would be an excellent idea to have a proxy. And having just had a quick chat with Councillor Steele, I understand that she she's available to do that job.
As a proxy?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. All right, so we'll amend that, Liz, if you can. So Councillor Kelly, member, and Councillor Steele, proxy. Southwest Country Zone of Welga, we have Councillor Giles and Councillor Steele nominating as a member.
That's actually not really, I think it's
Steck.
Yes, sir.
And Councillor Cook as a proxy. So we have two nominations for one position there. So councillors, I'll just ask you to indicate if you've got voting papers in your desk there. Just tick which of those two you wish to be member.
Mr Mayor, I'm happy to stand then as a proxy if one of the other two may want to take that position.
Mr Mayor, I'd be happy to be proxy.
So, as you were, Councillor, so Councillor Steck has been nominated as a member and Councillor Giles as proxy. You, Councillor Cook, you indicated you wanted to be a proxy as well. Are you withdrawing that?
Happy to withdraw it, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Southwest Regional Road Group, Councillor Jones is the member. We don't have a proxy for that.
Mr Mayor, I believe it's really important that we do have a proxy.
Are you nominating Councillor Jones?
Yeah, there's only 4 meetings in a year, but it's
Councillor
really
Steele. Yep, okay.
Thank you.
Bunbury Alcohol Accord. We have two nominations for the member, Councillor Cook and Councillor Steck. Any further negotiation happening over here?
Happy to become the proxy, Mr Mayor.
Okay, so Councillor Steck member, Councillor Cook proxy to her. Thanks, Liz. Yep. And Councillor Steck will be the member of the Alcohol Accord. Meals on Wheels and Senior Cits Management Committee, we have two nominations for member, Councillor McCleary and Councillor Jones. Any negotiation, councillors?
I'm happy to be proxy on that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Yep. Bunbury Port Community Liaison, we have two nominations for member of that, Councillor Warnock and Councillor Giles. No movement. We'll vote on that. So just indicate, councillors, which one you prefer to be on that committee. Does anybody not have these voting slips in their drawers? Councillor Warnock has been the preferred one there, so we'll just lock that in. Then we have the Bunbury Wellington Economic Alliance. Is there any further, anyone else wants to go on that? Councillor Kelly?
I'd have to be a proxy on that one if there's a posse for that.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Hayward. Anybody else? Dolphin Discovery Centre Management Committee, Councillor Morris.
I'm quite happy to be the proxy.
Proxy, Councillor Steck, thank you. That's the, yep. Morrissey Homestead, Councillor Kelly. Oh, we'll put you in. Thank you. Councillor McCleary. That's the Morrissey Homestead. Liz, we'll just put Councillor McCleary in there. Southwest Women's Health Information Centre, Councillor Giles. Councillor Steele, proxy. This is terrific. Parent Naturalist Partnership, Councillor Cook is nominated as a member. Is there anybody wishing to be a proxy to him on that group? Councillor Giles, thank you. Anyone else? Thank you very much. Councillor Giles, proxy for Point Perrin. Worsley Community Liaison Committee, we have Councillor Hayward and Steck nominated as member. Did you wish to be on that as well? As a proxy? Okay, so we'll vote on that. So councillors, Councillor Hayward or Steck for Worsley Community Liaison. Councillor Hayward is your preferred member for that. So councillors, with that item 11.2.1, can I have a mover and a seconder that we endorse those? Thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor Jones, all in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Councillor. I really appreciate the fact that we have a number of proxies putting your hand up as well. That's great. We move on to 11.2.2. Membership of the Policy Review and Development Committee. There's myself, Councillors Warnock, Cook, Giles, Kelly, Hayward and Steck have all nominated, and there are 5 positions including my own, and just a reminder, I'm under legislation I can nominate to go on there. So if we have, thank you Liz, councillors, I invite you to tick 4 names. Councillor Cook, you're going to add your name or delete? You withdraw. Mr. Mayor. Any other alterations, councillors? Okay, we still have 5 names for 4 positions. We have 4. We have 4 councillors plus myself. It's 5. Yeah. Okay, so just indicate the 4 that you wish to go on there, councillors. Liz is the scrutiny. Councillors, the result is Councillors Hayward, Kelly, Warnock and Giles. Can I have someone move that way? Councillor McCleary, Councillor Jones, all in favour. Those against, that's carried unanimously, thank you. The next appointments is to the membership of the CEO Performance Review Panel. We need 3 councillors and we have 4 nominations there. Are there any further nominations for that? If not, please indicate which of those. We need 3 names for the CEO Performance Review Panel, so let's do that again.
Sir, I'll withdraw. I've been on that panel since I've been elected, so I might as well withdraw.
Okay. We still have 4 nominations for 3 positions. So please indicate the 3 you would like on that panel. Thank you. The outcome is Councillors Warnock, Giles and Hayward. Can I have someone move that way, please? Councillor McCleary, second Councillor Hayward, all in favour. Those against, that's carried unanimously, thank you. We move to the Audit Committee and we have nominations. We have 3 members on that committee. We have 3 nominations. I'd also invite a proxy for that committee if somebody's interested in being a proxy. Me. Councillor Cook, thank you very much. Can someone move that we have those 3 members and Councillor Cook as proxy to the Audit Committee? Councillor Giles, second up. Councillor Morris, all in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. The Withers Advisory Committee, we have Councillors Cook, McGuell, Steele, Hayward and Steck all nominating for 3 positions. So again, are there any further nominations? Councillor Cook?
I'd like to withdraw, Mr Mayor.
You withdraw. We have 4 positions, we have 4 nominations for 3 positions.
I'll also withdraw, sir.
You withdraw, Councillor Steck. Councillor
Mr.
Hayward?
Mayor, would it be good to have a proxy potentially?
Yep, okay. So can I have someone interested in being a proxy to that committee? Thank you, Councillor McGuinness. Thank you. So, councillors, we have Councillor Steele, McGuell, Hayward and Councillor McGuinness as a proxy. Someone move that way. Councillor Cook, Councillor Kelly, all in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. The Roadwise Committee, we have two opportunities there. Councillor McCleary is nominated. Is there anybody else interested in joining that committee? Councillor Steele. Thank you. Someone move that Councillor McCleary and Steele be appointed. Councillor Jones, seconder. Councillor Hayward, all in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. The International Relations Committee, we have 1 councillor position and we have 4 nominations. Anyone wish to withdraw or add?
Mr Mayor, I'll withdraw my proxy so that one of the others can be proxy. Thank you.
Anyone else want to move? Okay, we have 4 nominations, McGuinness, McCleary, Steele and Morris. Councillors, please indicate which one of those you wish to be on there with me. Councillors, while that count is occurring, with item sub-point 5, we have actually names of 2 people who represent other organisations, which is Southwest Development Commission and Edith Cowan University Campus. We've actually named them. Now, I don't think that's a great idea. I think we should nominate a representative from the Southwest Development Commission and a representative from ECU, as those people may change. So, with your indulgence, if someone's prepared to amend that, so we have the number 3, we'll delete number 5, and 6 will become 5. I'll just get this other nomination for you, Councillor Jones. Councillor McCleary is the nomination, and Councillor Jones, you're moving that Councillor McCleary be appointed, together with myself, and that change to delete 5 as printed. Councillor Giles, you're seconding? I'll just ask for a nomination from anybody who wants to be proxy. Councillors? Yep, Councillor Steele, thank you. So Councillor Jones, coming back to you, it's myself, Councillor McCleary, Councillor Steele as proxy. Number 2 is printed, number 3 is printed, delete 5, and number 6 becomes 5. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Giles. All in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to the Youth Advisory Committee. We have 3 positions and we have 3 nominations. Are we all happy with that? Councillor McGuell.
I'm happy to come on board as a proxy if needed, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. So Councillor McGuell can be a proxy there. Someone prepared to move that way? Those 3 plus Councillor McGuell, Councillor Kelly, Councillor Jones. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. It's good to see the amount of young people that have nominated for that council as well. It's fantastic. Not councillors. Okay. We move on to the Community Access Committee. Thank you, Councillor Giles. We'll put you in there. So Councillor Steele and Kelly as members and Councillor Giles as proxy. Any further nominations? Okay. Someone move that way. Councillor McCleary, Councillor Kelly, all in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. And the Southern Joint Development Assessment Panel. So we've got Councillor Cook, Councillor McCleary and myself as a proxy. So Councillor Cook and McCleary will be members and I'll be proxy to them. Someone move that way. Councillor Jones, seconder. Councillor Kelly, all in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, we need a second proxy for that.
Isn't that in legislation? No. Beg your pardon. We need another proxy.
Do that.
Councillor Steck. I'll put that. Councillor Steck nominated as proxy. Someone move that. Sorry. Councillor Jones, you move. Councillor Giles, second. All in favour? Those against? It's carried. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. We're doing well. No one's gone to sleep up the back there? We do this once every 2 years. It's terrific. Right, we move down to 11.2.12. How are we going there, Liz? Are you okay? Good. Mr Smith. You have 5 minutes, Mr Smith.
Councillors, you may not accept that it's true, but I don't very often get enraged. But when I read this item, I was enraged, both on my own behalf and on behalf of the pair of swans that have nested in this area for as long as I can remember. Two of the most optimistic and persevering swans I've ever seen, who every year have to protect the young that are produced, but also on behalf of the ducks and ducklings that breed there and the moorhens that inhabit this area. This is an integral part of the big swamp. There is no way that a government corporation, especially Watercorp, should be coming to council and telling us that they're desirous of selling it. How can a government agency, if it's seriously concerned about the environment, contemplate the sale of this land? It ought to be given to council, vested in council, and become part of the integral part of the big swamp. I know the state has financial problems of its own creation, but if you note in the margin of the plans that have been provided, the valuation on this land is given as $830,422. Now, where is council going to get that sort of money to ensure the integrity of the big swamp? Watercorp hasn't helped, of course, because they've stuck their pumping station immediately adjacent to Prince Philip Drive, and it traverses through the middle of the reserve. This is an organisation which caused the spill last week, that has been given approval by council to put all the sewage from north of Bunbury, from Eton, Australind, and from what will become East Eton at Waterloo, to the station treatment works at South Bunbury, and from there, of course, once treated, hopefully properly, it goes out into Geograph Bay. Part of Bunbury is unsewered, but I don't think it's going to be caught up. The areas around Strickland Street badly need to be sewered in order to protect our drainage and the inlet and the bay. I was so angry, I thought to myself, why the hell hasn't this been referred to the Environment Committee? Then, of course, I remembered that Council abolished its Environment Committee. Then I asked myself, why hasn't it been referred to our environmental officers for comment before coming to Council? Why hasn't Council instructed the CEO, at least, to hot-foot it round to all of the state members who represent Bunbury in one way or another, and ask them to really urge the Premier and to intervene with Watercorp, and the Minister to intervene with Watercorp to ensure that this land is not offered to any other department, that its council is not expected to pay for it, and that it's reintegrated with the big swamp as a whole. I really can't say any more than that, so I'll hold it there. But I really do urge councillors, rather than the resolution that is proposed, that they do instruct the CEO and the Mayor to immediately meet with the Honourable John Castrilli, who I'm pleased to see is present, but all of the state members of Parliament who are meant to represent us, to urge them to make representations on the city's behalf that this proposed sale is taken off the books completely, and that they immediately investigate the means by which the land can be transferred, preferably as freehold, but if not as freehold, at least as vested state land to council, so that it remains part of the big swamp, which is one of the most important wetlands in the whole of the southwest.
So I'm prepared to move the executive recommendation. Question, Councillor Kelly.
When the letter came from the Department of Lands, it didn't have a date by which they were working on a timeline. I'm just wondering whether or not there was a timeline to this, so that I know whether or not we perhaps need to do something else.
Mr. CEO. Councillor, Felicity.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's not a timeline. They are working to closing off the disposal process, so they would like us to advise them as soon as possible if the council is interested in the land, acquiring the land.
Thank you. Councillor Hayward, you're moving.
Ready to move.
Second up. Is there a seconder to this? Councillor McGwell. Councillor Hayward.
I think the process is well set out. What we need to do is go and have a look at this land. Our people need to go and have a look. Ultimately, it does need to come into the council's possession in one way or another, and all of those processes need to be undertaken. I'm not adverse to the things that Mr. Smith spoke about, but I think that the due process here is not to not do this, but to actually get on and do this and get out there and make an evaluation of the land and have a look and find out what's there, and then go back to the department and work out how it's going to be done, whether it's paid for or transferred in some other means. But I think ultimately we've got to get control of the land, and we've got to be involved in a process that does that. So I'd urge councillors to put this through. I don't think there's any risk that we're doing anything wrong there. We need to get control of the land, and this is the process to do it. Thanks.
Councillor McGwell. Speaker against.
I've got another question, if I may.
Sure.
It does say council requests the chief executive officer undertake an investigation. Can I just ask how long that's anticipated to take as well,
Mr. CEO.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. It'll be about going and having a look at the site. It's probably going to be a month, 2 months before we'll have a final position to come back to council.
And I took it from the last part of that answer, Mr. Mayor, that this will come back to council.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's just for him to carry out the investigation. Are you asking a question, Councillor Steck?
No, sir, I just want to speak against.
Yeah, Councillor Jones, did you have a question?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
The amount of 830,422 was mentioned. Is that the valuation or the valuation number of this particular site?
Mr. CEO.
Yes, the amount of $830,422 was mentioned as a valuation. In fact, I believe that to be a valuation number and not the valuation of land.
It is correct, yeah. Councillor Steck, you're speaking against. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Just one question first off the rank. How much is the cost of the investigation going to be for staff time in trying to find the availability of land sales and negotiations to government, and also the actual cost of the land sale?
I'm sure you've given this a lot of consideration, Mr. CEO, but can you answer?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I couldn't give an exact cost. Certainly, it'll just be absorbed into part of the officer's normal daily duties. We have staff who are going to look at different aspects of it, so the environment staff will look at that aspect of it, our work staff will look at infrastructure issues, and our property section will be looking at valuations and potential future use of that area as well. Can be absorbed.
Okay, speaking against now? Go ahead.
Thank you. Just with that information, that does concern me because, as all councillors know, when we get into budget meeting, every single line item, every single expenditure is up for grabs. Basically, every time one of our officers is off on a tangent doing something else, they're not on the job that we want them to do to deliver outcomes for the city. This is cost shifting 101 by state government. They own it, let them go value it, then come and see us. We've got to stop this cost shifting. Please don't vote for this.
So Speaker 4, Councillor McCleary.
I think the key word here is investigation, and my vision for that area, hopefully when it comes back, it may be able to be freehold, that we will be able to incorporate it with the big swamp, but there may also be opportunity further up on near Spencer Street to develop, because there's high land there to develop building. So I think we do need to, we can't sit on our hands because we have a lot of money. We do have money, and I do believe that the rate has to be quite respectful of an increase if we are out there looking at areas where we can increase our rate base as well as beautify our city. So I would say, let's look and investigate what can be done with that. I do hope that you will vote for this.
Further speaker against? Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll be voting against it and urge other councillors to do the same. I will be offering an alternate motion. I'm sorry I haven't given notice of this, but it's only just come up. So I will be seeking to have the CEO write to the state and try and have the blocks vested in us as a reserve to become part of Big Swamp. This is a pristine area. There's no doubt about that at all. It is not capable of being developed, I can assure you. In fact, it's kept in very poor state at the present time by Watercorp. Most important that this land is not sold, and of course one of the dangers in knocking this back is that it could go to the market, which would be the worst result possible. But councillors, I urge you to vote against it, and I will offer my alternate resolution if I get the opportunity. Thank you.
Further speaker 4. Question.
Was this area of Francis Street once part of the market gardens prior to the development of Big Swamp?
I'm not sure, Councillor Morris. Do you know? We can't answer that question. The font of all knowledge. No. Okay. Further speaker 4. Councillor Hayward, would you care to close?
I just want to touch on something Councillor Cook mentioned, and I think he's exactly right. The biggest worry is if we don't get involved in this process, there's nothing stopping Watercorp selling it to anybody. So what we ought to do is we ought to pass this motion, get involved in the conversation. I support Councillor Cook's position that we ought to write to the state government and see if it can't be vested in us. Let's do that as well. But let's not do this because we might miss out. If it's important enough to us, we need to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put it all in favour. Please indicate. Those against? That's carried. Councillor Steele, Cook, Steck and Giles were against. Everybody else voted for. Thanks, Liz. We move on. 11 to 14, which is a budget review. I need an absolute majority. Someone prepared to move that? Councillor Jones, Councillor McGuell. I'll put it all in favour. Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors, 11.4.1 we've previously dealt with when we were appointing the committees. Now we move to 11.4.2. Councillor Steck's left us. Mr. Carter. Thanks, Ben. You have 5 minutes.
You started the clock already, Mayor. It's good. You should have those at other councils. Look, thanks for the opportunity to talk again. I've been here before, so I'll keep it brief. And to the alternate resolution, if possible. Look, we've seen the alternate resolution that has come through today. We think it's perhaps finally a good step in the right direction, a collaboration between the application and the staff and the city in terms of finding some sort of middle ground. The particular aspects of the alternate which we think are important, which we'd like to touch on, is the dwell time of the advert, the nighttime shut-off period, the indemnification of the city, and the 20% content for community and or tourism or event signage. In terms of dwell time, Main Roads has a maximum requirement for 45 seconds. This is now out to 60 seconds. The idea is that we want to try and, as much as possible in that condition, have a situation where people would only see a second sign if they were stopped at the lights, but the idea is to maximise the propensity that they wouldn't come through the intersection and see a second sign. The nighttime shut-off, to my understanding, is really to try and bridge the gap between the site is awkward, we all agree, it's residential, but it's on the major street in Bunbury. It really should be commercial, but it's not the time to discuss that. The nighttime shut-off at 11 p.m, again, bridges the gap between any perceived amenity concerns or actual, and again, it really brings it back to having the sign there for not a 24-hour period. The indemnification was another important condition that we thought we would touch on. Again, it's something that our client has as a practice for all their signs, and certainly would be in this instance as well. Finally, the 20% content for community or tourism messaging. It's difficult and awkward to do that currently. We have a situation of an approval where it has to come to council to get content changed, and it's a vinyl skin. Once it's there, it's there. The technology is such that it can be accessed remotely. We can put within the bounds of the approval anything on there that is appropriate and our client would like, particularly with this content for tourism and community events. It's on one of the main approaches out of Bunbury. It really is using the technology for more than just the commercial purpose that it's there for. We think that's a good thing. Again, we think that these draft conditions really overcome what has been quite problematic advice that's come out of Main Roads. We've got a document which doesn't apply to the road that it's being used for. We've now got crash tables and matrices which don't explain why people have crashes at that intersection other than that there's been panel damages in the last 5 years. It doesn't say if they're on their phones or high on drugs or too much alcohol. It really doesn't get to the heart of the matter, which is the development, road safety, and we just haven't got there. So really we think these draft conditions overcome that reliance, and again we would just like to really speak to the fact that we think this is a good middle ground. It is obviously not a totally commercial outcome. It's also not perhaps completely in keeping with the local planning policy which is in place, but it is really the middle ground between the two, which I think we've been struggling to get to for a long time. We have a commitment finally from our client that each and every one of those conditions will be accepted wholeheartedly. This is not an attempt to get this approval through and then trot off to SAT. The desire is that we deal with this tonight in the room finally, and that this approval would be enacted and it wouldn't be reviewed in any way, shape or form if it was approved as per these conditions. So thank you again for your time, and if there are any questions, happy to answer them.
Thanks, Mr. Carter. So, councillors, we have an executive recommendation. There's also the alternate. I'm now going to ask for anyone wishing to move the executive recommendation. Councillor Steele. Is there a seconder? Councillor Cook. Councillor Steele. Councillor Cook.
Just very quickly, we've debated this several times over, and I commend Councillor Hayward for his attempt to find middle ground here, and we'll certainly end up with LED signs around Bunbury. There's no doubt about that at all. However, not in this location, at this place, at this time. It fails the common sense test and should be defeated. Councillors, I urge you to defeat it. The original sign, and of course we can't criticise any previous council decisions, but the sign is in a residential area, should never have been put there in the first place. Now that it is there, we're going to live with it. However, we don't need to see any any light emitted from that side at all. Councillors, I urge you to vote against this, to support this recommendation to refuse the application. Thank you.
Speaker against, Councillor Hayward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I foreshadow that there is an alternative recommendation. I'm not sure if you've already seen that. That's certainly what Ben was just speaking to. Should this motion not get up, I propose to move the alternative recommendation. One of the difficulties I have with this is that we say that we're going to be open for business in Bunbury, and we've had a developer come and see us and say, hey, look, we want to do this. We've told them, hey, we can't deal with that because we're not organised enough at our end. We're living in 2015, but our local policy has not caught up with where we're at today. So our advice to them is to say, well, send it to the policy committee. So they sit back, watch us do that. We send it to the policy committee. All the time we run around saying, hey, we're open for business. Then we bring it back here again for a third go. And still haven't got anywhere. We still haven't moved forward. Ultimately, what are we really arguing about here? We're arguing about a technology. There is already at that spot, there is a billboard. It's the size it is. It's printed on vinyl. We're not putting anything or suggesting that we put anything that's not there already. In terms of what is the experience when you pull up in your car and you stop there and there's a great big McDonald's sign. The McDonald's sign, by the way, is red, one of the colours that we're told we shouldn't have. So it's already there. It's already there. I sent around, in terms of earlier, some information about these road safety signs that was gathered from around Australia that showed that they do not contribute to traffic crashes. And again, if you drive to Perth, if you go to any major city, you go to anywhere, this is the future of what our society is going to look like. I cannot understand why we want to put barriers in front of these people, why we claim that we're open for business, and then behave like we aren't. I mean, one of the recommendations, and I don't mean any disrespect to officers, I think they've done a great job, and I certainly appreciate the job that our officers did to assist me to draft that alternative motion, so that's important to know as well. That was our people that helped draft that. But one of the recommendations was to illuminate it by putting some lights up there and beaming lights on there. I don't know if anyone saw Back to the Future this week, but in 1960 that was absolutely cutting-edge technology. But it just simply isn't in 2015. And if we want to be a city that's on the edge, that's contemporary, we need to embrace this technology and not send people around 3 times because we're not organised. And I would urge you to vote this down and to really have the guts to approve this under an alternative recommendation. Thank you very much.
Further speaker 4. Yes. Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I find it necessary to speak on this firstly. We're not arguing against technology here, and I think everybody in the room acknowledges that electronic graphic display screens are the way of the future. They will occur, and they will occur in various places within our city, and they'll occur very, very quickly. The issue here is about planning and process to make sure that we get it right wherever we're going to put these LED signs, and they'll be everywhere eventually. Not everywhere, because there are places that they can't go. Now, having read through this, and this has gone on for quite some time, the argument that was put by Main Roads was sound. It's a major intersection. I went past there again just today, actually, and was looking at a couple of the trees that block the view of the LED sign or the billboard from certain directions, particularly heading west. And I've just wondered to myself, just quietly, Mr. Mayor, whether or not the next step is to get rid of the trees that are sitting on the verge there so that the sign can be seen better. I'm not opposed to this eventually happening and something happening on that site. What I would like to see is that we follow planning and we follow process, and I know it's difficult for the proponent who has to come back here time and time again, but what I would like to say is that if we can't have a process and we haven't got planning and we've got something that's certainty for everybody who comes to Bunbury to do business, and we are open for business, then that uncertainty makes it hit and miss. Somebody comes along and says, oh, I'd like to put a sign there. Oh, well, hang on a tick, we're not sure about our policy. It's not in their sound at the moment. They come along and they come along 3 or 4 times. I don't want to do things ad hoc, Mr. Mayor, and I don't want to do things piecemeal. I want this one to be put to bed at some stage, but I think that it is an ad hoc decision if it gets to the alternative motion, and I think that I ask councillors to support the resolution, the executive recommendation as is, knowing full well that when we get our policy and our process together on the electronic graphic display screens in and around Bunbury, wherever that may be, then we will move forward and will continue to move forward. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Further speaker against? Councillor Morris.
Yes. The comment was made that the area is residential. Take a look at the four corners. We're going to be having a neighbourhood shopping centre built on one corner. We've got a furniture store on another, and on the fourth we have a rental equipment business. Residential. The sign is facing away from the houses. Just go down the road a few 400 or 500 meters. We have this huge sign of Big W, McDonald's. Right across the street is residential. Oh, that's okay. Oh, well, hang on. This corner, we can't. It doesn't make sense. Now, if we're taking a look in relation to technology, if you've ever been to Las Vegas and down the strip with a 6-lane highway with traffic lights, and you've got signs that are LED, flashing lights, Circus, Caesar's Palace, is it distracting? We don't have any more accidents on that strip than what you do outside Las Vegas. Having red signs. Anyone been to King's Cross and seen the Coca-Cola sign there at the intersection of King's Cross? It's been there for years. Times Square. Driving to Times Square, one of the busiest intersections in New York City. You will find neon signs, you will find LED signs, you will find every type of sign imaginable. Do we have more accidents on Times Square than other areas? No. Technology is, in fact, needs to be caught up with, the city needs to catch up with technology. It was mentioned Back to the Future. I could see in 20 years' time, people's going to go here to Bunbury and thinking, oh, they're in a time warp. It's 1985. I don't want to live in 1985. I want to live in 2015. And I'm going to vote against this issue because I believe that Bunbury needs to actually advance and take a look at the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Speaker 4, Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think, with respect, what everybody said is quite correct, but there's a little tiny thing that we're missing out on here, and it's called residential in our policy. Okay, so this block, I agree, it shouldn't be residential, but it is. It is written in our policy as residential. So if we say, go ahead and put a sign up there, LED sign, we are not protecting our residential areas. Okay, so what's to say that someone else can't come here and argue that they want, on their block, residential, an LED sign? Yes, it's not what it should be. It's zoned incorrectly? Probably. However, this is what we got. This is what we're asking this council to do, to actually say yes to an LED sign or a huge sign that is on a residential block, regardless of where it is. That's what you need. That's the crux. That's when we need to go back to the policy committee, as Councillor Kelly said. That needs to be ironed out. But at this point in time, it is not ironed out. It is not clear, and it will open a way for people with residential blocks to have any sort of sign. So we do need to, as much as we probably don't like it, we do need to stay with our policy at this particular time. We need to go back to the drawing board and work out how we can get this happening in the correct procedures. Thank you. So please do vote for this. at this particular time. Thank you.
You further speak against? Councillor Steele. I'll put it all in favour of the executive recommendation. Those against? That's lost. We haven't finished yet, Councillor Steele. Councillor Hayward, you indicated an alternative recommendation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So the alternative recommendation that's before you has had quite a lot of...
Councillor Hayward, you're moving the alternative recommendation. Okay, can I get a seconder for that? Councillor McGuinness, thank you. Councillor Hayward.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I got ahead of myself there. This was distributed earlier. So quite a bit of work has been done in terms of making this as safe as possible. One of the things that was in the previous discussion was brought up was that we don't have a policy and it doesn't quite fit, and that's exactly right. But the problem is, the thing is that it comes to us because it doesn't fit, and we can use our discretion to make a decision. Now, so what's happened here, if you have a look through each of these recommendations in terms of what's being proposed, it's quite extensive. It talks about the dwell time, how long the sign's going to be on for. It eliminates the possibility of people using video or motion graphics or anything that jumps around and grabs people's attention. So it really is only a electronic reproduction of what is already in place at this site. It talks about there's an indemnity in there. Then you've heard from the proponent that they're happy to accept that indemnity. So if somebody is injured or is involved in a crash and they come back to us, then there's some insurance in place to cover that off, and that's good for us as well. It's to be turned off at 11 o'clock at night, not turned back on until dawn. It's got to have its luminance controlled. All of those points are in this alternative recommendation. So I would urge you to support it. I think we can support it, and I think it'd be great. It'd be great for Bunbury. So please do. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McGuinness.
Look, I know this is very new to council, but I agree for this motion as the amended motion. I think that point of anything that we're doing to put in the way of people developing our city, when there is a viable alternative as suggested here by Councillor Hayward. Look, I absolutely agree that we need to be respectful of people, residential owners, people that live in the city. But as Councillor Morris also pointed out, we already have business in this area, and I really think that what is proposed in this alternative recommendation is a really good middle ground and a good way forward. I think we need to stick, we are open for business. We have developers coming here asking us how they can put something in our city, and I think it is the way of the future, and I think we need to support it. Thank you.
Speaker against? I'll put it. All in favour, please indicate. Those against? 2 against, that's carried. So, Mr Carter, the decision of Council is to approve the amended recommendation. Councillors, we move on to 11.4.3, and I invite Mr Schrant to come forward. Welcome again. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Sorry, excuse me. Before you start, sorry, Councillor Speck. Sorry, Mr Schrant. It's not been a great night, has it?
Not a problem, sir.
I know, he really gets this.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor McGill. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, councillors. This is my first deputation, so forgive my earlier or premature approach to the microphone a little earlier. Just in regards to item 11.4.3, after I submitted my objections to this, I realised there was another issue or an objection I'd like to raise for your consideration. We have a small issue with mould in our laundry. Now, while we're able to keep on top of it at the moment, the concern is the 2.4 metre building built against the zero-lot wall of our property is going to block much-needed sunlight into the laundry and exacerbate our problem. We have a young child as well, so it's certainly something we do not wish to risk. That is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll just ask the CEO to address the issues about that retaining wall, councillors. It is in the report, but we have had some comment from our officers, so I'll just ask the CEO to respond.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The issue is in relation to the zero lot boundary wall. The wall's approximately about 3 metres long, so it's a fairly short section on there. It is only a minor variation to the R code, which is being sought by the applicant in this case, and we think it is a reasonable condition. And obviously, if council was to relax that issue, then obviously it's an appealable condition. We'd need to be aware of that. So, in terms of changing or imposing any further setback on that zero lot boundary, it would also probably make the application or the proposed development unviable, and they'd have to go back and redesign the whole lot on the other side of it. So it's just one to be aware of more than anything else, and we think the conditions are reasonable at this point in time.
Can someone move the executive recommendation? No one? Councillor Jones, Councillor Cook. Councillor Jones? Councillor Cook? Is there a speaker against? I'll put it. All in favour? Those against? 2 against, 3 against. That's carried. So, Mr. Schrant, the recommendation has been approved. Your request has been denied. Thank you for coming along. Okay. We have 11.1, request for leave of absence of Councillor Giles. Someone prepared to move that, please. Councillor Jones, Councillor Cook, all in favour. Those against? Against? It's carried. Okay. Next one is Councillor Cook, request for leave of absence between those dates. Someone prepared to move that. Councillor Jones, Councillor Giles, all in favour. Those against? That's carried unanimously. It's okay. You can talk to Councillor Giles later. We move on to, I think we have 15. Councillors, can I have someone move that we deal with this matter tonight? Councillor Cook, Councillor Giles, all in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Councillor, we have a recommendation there. Before we get to that, does anybody want to ask a question which cannot be confidential in nature? Okay, well, good. Can someone move that way? Councillor McGrail moves. Councillor Hayward seconds. Is there likely to be any debate on this? Okay. Councillor McGrail, do you wish to speak? Councillor Hayward? Speaker against. Councillor McGuinness, or a question?
It was more a question, and
if you'd like to, sorry, you have to stand. You'll get used to it.
That's all right. There's more a question, and it's hard because there's some confidential information in there.
Well, what we can do is go behind closed doors. It's quite comfortable to do that.
Is that? Yeah, that would be...
All right, then can I someone move and go behind closed doors? Councillor Hayward, Councillor McCleary, all in favour? It's carried. Ladies and gentlemen, because this is now confidential, I invite you to take your leave.
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Kelly, you wanted to do an amendment?
Proposal number 4, Mr. Mayor.
Please go ahead.
Following the consideration of public submissions, this item be returned to council for final decision.
Yeah, we'll endorsement. Thank you. Is there a seconder to that amendment?
Because if you go to point 3...
We'll get... thank you, Councillor Steck. We'll stop the submissions at... full stop at submissions.
Perhaps, Mr. Mayor, it could be and prepare a lease. Is that appropriate so that we've got something to consider? Prepare a draft lease. Yep, that sounds...
So Councillor Kelly's moving those amendments. Councillor Giles, are you seconding that? Sure. subject to the following. These things, subject, Mr. CEO, just subject to. We're required by law to do that process. I think it was just assumed that we would do that. Seconded to Councillor Kelly's amendment. Councillor McCleary. I'm going to put it all in favour. Those against, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. So the amended motion is there. Councillor McGuell, Councillor Hayward. Is there anyone speaking against that? I'll put it all in favour. Those against, it's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, everybody. And I appreciate all the nominations and involvement of all of you in tonight's committees. I declare the meeting closed at 7:09 p.m.